All right.
So I'm Richard Joel, and Vera Nazarian has let us be part of our entertainment panel today for TagCon. And for those of you who are joining us, Vera is an author, a very prolific author of some amazing books, award-winning novels, including The Atlantis Grail, which is a book I've optioned to develop and turn into a TV series. So you're all here to help with her fan base, to kind of let them know what Hollywood is like, what this business is like, good or bad. We're going to kind of give them an inside take on this wonderful business that we all call our careers. And what I'd like to do is just start with each one of you, go around just a few minutes, just talk about a little bit about yourself, maybe what you've done in the past, what you're doing now, if there's a current project you want to talk about, and then this is a very open kind of conversational panel today. So if somebody comments on something that you'd like to add into, please do so. It's a positive environment today. And so I'm just going to start up at the top left corner of my screen, which is Julie. Julie, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do in this business?
Hi, my name's Julie Pifher Kaywood, and I'm a writer and producer. I am originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I went to USC Film School a very long time ago that I graduated. And right when I graduated, there was a writer's strike. So instead of getting into a writer's room like I thought I would, I ended up in reality TV, where I was a development executive for over a decade. I created lots of docuseries, and My Giant Life was one of my shows that ran for 3 seasons on TLC. Born Behind Bars was on A&E for a season. I did a bunch of pilots. I did acquisitions and sales. So I would acquire finished shows and sell them to the networks as well. I worked in comic books for a little bit, adapting comic books into TV and film pitches. And then I also published 7 books myself, and I'm now moving into virtual reality. So I've done kind of a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Thank you. Richard Leacock, you're up next.
Hey, I'm Richard Leacock. Good to see everybody. I've been an actor for over 35 years or so.
You started infant, right?
Huh? Say it again?
You started as an infant, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Fresh out of the womb. They threw me right into a diaper commercial right away. That's what happened. I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of TV series, guest work, some feature films. Most recently, I've been working on my own short film, which is a pilot presentation that I hope to turn into a TV series in the near future. Not hope, I will be turning that into a TV series. Really, I don't know, that's about it. I've just been blessed and been able to do a lot of different TV shows and plays and everything like that.
Excellent, thank you. Stephen, you're on my right, so you're up next.
I am Stephen L. Sears. I'm a writer, producer, author, sometimes actor. Most of my work has been done in television. I go back quite a ways. My first show was a show called Riptide, which you can see my guys over here on Riptide. The second show I was staffed on was the A-Team, so that does date me quite a bit. I've worked on shows like Hardcastle McCormick, Stingray, Jesse Hawks, Swamp Thing, Superboy. I can actually forget my credits now. That's good. I was Xena. That's right. I was co-exec producer and head writer for Xena Warrior Princess. Wow. I also produced Raven for CBS, and I was the co-creator and exec producer for the last version of Sheena, which she's up there too. I still work in television and development and deals with studios. I've sold a lot of pilots, and I'm moving into prose. I've written a lot of short stories and anthologies. The Alien versus Predator, the first anthology book that came out on that, I'm in there. Jeff Sturgeon's Last Cities of Earth. I actually wrote a nonfiction book about working in the television industry, which is over here somewhere, the non-user-friendly guide to aspiring TV writers. Currently, aside from the projects I have in development and the 3 half novels I have half completed, I co-wrote a graphic novel with Kevin J. Anderson, the author, Stalag X, which is over here. that was grabbed up by Francis Lawrence, who was the director of, well, at this point, 4 of the Hunger Games, I Am Legend, Red Sparrow, a lot of other of my favorite movies. And that's being developed actively as a feature film. And as I said in my previous panel, eventually I'll figure out what I want to do with my life. But until then, I'll just keep doing this.
Well, you'll be writing books next. That's what
There you go.
said.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. Up next is Laura Faye Smith. Please tell us about yourself and what you do in this business.
I'm an actress. I moved to LA from the Pacific Northwest about 5 years ago. So there I was mostly doing live theater, and then they have a little bit of film and television and voiceover stuff. So kind of the big areas of my career were if I told you, if people are oh, have I seen you in anything? The main thing people know me from is video games. So I'm the voice of Princess Rosalina for the Super Mario franchise. And then I'm in a game called Genshin Impact as a character in that called Noelle. So when I go to a Comic-Con, that's what I'm signing for that. And then since I've moved here, I've done just all sorts of stuff. People in the Pacific Northwest love to shit on LA and be oh, everybody there's a phony and it's going to be so terrible. And I'm you can work here in the industry. It's kind of fantastic. I'm sure you can come up with negative things, but to come here and suddenly be I can do so many auditions for video games, for animation, for dubbing. I've done a lot of audiobooks, audio dramas, podcasts. So that's a lot of work that I do. Certainly during the pandemic, that was most of what I was doing. And then, some TV film Grimm and Leverage and stuff for TV, and lots of film projects. The most interesting things that I'm working on right now, I can't talk about because everyone makes you sign these ironclad NDA things. So maybe in a future panel, I can talk about some of that stuff. And I'm starting to dabble in a little bit of writing right now too for an animated project.
And what's the animated project called?
It's called Steve the Alien.
Excellent. Okay. And are you doing, I understand you're also doing some voiceover work for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm doing the voiceover work and writing and adapting. It's from it's based on a children's book, and then it's being adapted into an animated series. So I've been writing the episodes and voicing both the characters in them.
So I'll get into that in a minute. Let's continue on. I have a question about that. Austin Valli, tell us about yourself here.
Going. Yes, my name is Austin Valli. I am originally from the Washington, D.C. area. Moved out to Los Angeles about 3 years ago, so it still feels like a little bit of a new space to me out here as well. I know that move, what that's like. I started actually in sports broadcasting. I felt like it was a little bit more of a structured way to go about acting. And it wasn't like acting at all. It was very different. So I abandoned that completely and got back to what I actually wanted to do, which was acting. And I had a romantic comedy that got picked up by Amazon in 2022. That was really fun. And this past year, I've been working on a few Lifetime features. And I have a film in development right now that's getting distributed. That's a independent mobster crime drama that was a lot of fun. And it was a cool character to undertake and very different than some of the other romantic and comedic roles that I do. So that was a fun thing to go about doing. But yeah, just kind of taking on all the opportunities that LA has to offer. I do a lot of modeling stuff as well. So if you're ever in an Adidas store, a Reebok store, or an Under Armour store, you might see my face. And yeah, I'm just really excited for this next year and these couple projects I have coming up and what else we have in store.
Excellent. Vera, did you want to talk?
Well, everybody here kind of knows me. I'm the author of the Atlantis World series, and I'm here to soak in all the wisdom of these amazing guests that we have today. So let you talk.
Okay. Deborah, you're up next, please. Deborah Whitcas.
Yes. Good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be here myself. My name is Deb Whitcas. I'm a 2-time Emmy-winning TV producer, media coach, as well as a sports reporter. Austin, I'm actually doing opposite of what you're doing. I've been transitioning from unscripted into sports reporting now for about 4 years, but we'll talk about the unscripted world first. I've been doing it for 20 something years. My first gig was the Jerry Springer Show, may he rest in peace. I've done a bunch of different, I've been on House Hunters. I directed that for years. Makeover shows, wedding shows, you name it, I've probably done it. I also work in development, worked for all the major networks, and Yeah, I do a little bit of everything in producing, casting, booking, pre-interviews, script writing, interviews. Right now we just finished up literally yesterday, the second season of I Crime with Elizabeth Vargas. So I work really tightly with Elizabeth Vargas. I'm the co-executive producer on that. I've got a show coming up with Nancy O'Dell as well, as well as a pilot, kind of a family paternity thing for Lifetime. And as for the sports stuff, Super Bowl is here. Richard and I are actually working together. We're going to work on Super Bowl week. Literally just got a call to work with MJ Acosta on a red carpet. So Richard, you don't even know that. So that call came a half hour ago. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also a media coach. If anybody wants to learn what it's like to be in this business, hit me up. So that's
so. First of all, thank you all for being here. What I do see is a lot of people doing multiple different facets of jobs in this business. And I also see a lot of development and a lot of selling shows and a lot of writing. There's a process that probably a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to sell a show. And so I'm going to start with Julie first, because I know you've written and sold some shows. Go through a bit of the process for you on how long it takes to develop, how long it takes to pitch, how long it takes once you sell a show in development to actually get something on the air, if you would. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Muted.
Somebody muted Julie. Can we unmute her?
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think it's really hard to sell a show. And I think that what helps sell a show, in my opinion, is obviously you have to have the right thing at the right time with the right network. But I also feel like you have to keep pitching the same people, and then they kind of start to take you seriously. And they're like, oh God, Julie again. Okay, she's not going to stop. Okay, yeah, let me see what she's got. Okay. So I feel like, you always have to come with quality so that they know that you have good stuff. But you almost have to kind of be ready to kill your first, second, and third line of projects, because the buyers need to trust you. They need to know that you can deliver on your show. And so I feel like it's hard to just land it on the first round, if that makes sense. I think if you want to sell a show, you have to have a lot of different ideas on the ready. And so if somebody's like, yeah, I'm looking for, a cyberpunk thing, you're like, oh my God, I have one, where it's like, oh, that wasn't in vogue the last 5 years, so even if something doesn't sell, it's never dead. And you can always bring it back out. And so if you want to sell a show, persistence is, you have to just keep going, keep doing it, have a really thick skin, not take it personally, and just keep doing it. It's kind of a numbers game as well. So it's like quantity and quality, if that makes sense, in my opinion and experience. You have to just keep going.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Julie, do you try to predict the trends then in that case? Like, when you got shows, are you kind of like watching what's in the zeitgeist, or kind of trying to see what's on the fringes and might be coming up? Like when things are coming to you, are you trying to kind of be a fortune teller to some degree?
Totally. And so the more you talk to the buyers, they tell you what they are looking for, and they have these mandates. You can get them from like an agency, or, ICM used to send them out. And so I would always study those. I'm a consumer of everything, but there's also tools like, for instance, book trends. The K-Lytics is a really great tool that kind of shows the up and coming genres. And so the mandates from the networks are important. But then I also think you can't chase the mandates, because they change all the time. And so you might be hearing about, oh yeah, we're looking for, a cooking show, or, a relationship show, or whatever it is. And they might have had that mandate for a while, and they're getting 5 pitches, from their favorite people. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and look at their whole offering and know their brand. But then also, if you have a project that you love, try to position it into how it can work for them and why. So I wouldn't only follow the mandates, because you might be kind of chasing a moving target, if that makes sense.
Exactly. If you're chasing the mandates, you're also behind, and also there's 50 other people that are, because every agency gets the mandates. So everybody's going, oh, there needs to be a dating show. Let's create a dating show, right? So it is a way to understand what they're doing. But me personally, I'm always trying to pitch just original that hasn't been done, so that when a buyer says, as Julie's saying, you got to get the trust. Some of that trust comes in. Are you doing something original and new? Or are you just making a derivative of what's already on TV? Are you trying to do another Bachelor with people have seen that? What's the original concept you can come to the table with is always a stronger pitch.
I find that chasing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, Steve, you also done a lot of development, and you're talking about films and shows. You've sold, Xena. What was the process to get Xena or Sheena on the air, and how long did that take?
I'm going to respond more or less in general, because
Sure.
I came into Xena right at the beginning, but Xena was a spinoff from Hercules. And so that was a show, and I hadn't been working on that show. So that show was like, it was done. We did a very high amount of sales at NAPTI at the producers convention when Xena went out. And the same thing actually happened with Sheena. The local stations just loved the concept, and it was branded. That was the main thing. But I have sold a lot of series. As everybody in this room knows, you can sell a lot of them. Getting them on the air is the other thing. The conversation you just had about chasing the mandates. Yeah, I've often said you don't want to start chasing somebody else's dog's tail. You have to be on the crest, but you can't get completely swamped by it. And it is true. Somebody comes out with a thing about rollerblading hula hoop Avengers, and suddenly, if it's a success, everybody's doing it, and they're looking for the next one. But if you come up with the next one, they'll say, oh, we're already doing that, or they'll say that's passé. So with myself, everything I take out is touching on demographic trends. I tend to pay a lot of attention to that in all forms of media. However, you try to suit it for the network that you're going into. And for a lot of these things, after you've done it for a while, you end up with a stack of things you can go out. You'll be prepared for almost any situation. But one thing you don't want to do is when you go in, you absolutely want to be able to switch gears if somebody says, hey, we're looking for, zombie pilots again. You go, well, look, I happen to have this one. You want to be able to switch gears very quickly with your projects. I will caution people, though, don't try to force one of your projects into that. You won't be able to do it successfully in the room, and they've seen it before, so they'll know it. But for my development, I either acquire a property or I begin from scratch with myself, and I decide whether I'm going to develop a full pitch package, whether I'm going to start acquiring bits and pieces, like signing on other people, which can be a good thing, but also a very dangerous thing. And I will put down everything from a simple package to pitch, meaning it could be just a one-pager to try to entice people, to a full package, which could include several episodes, not just character breakdown, but also possible actors and actresses that I want to include in it, a possible production, and a budget. Now that's very big and that's very extreme. And with those going in, you'll find out that 80% of it doesn't matter on your sale, but you just don't know. The pitch market has changed so much since I started. I sold a series standing in line at Ralph's at a grocery store. Back then, you could do something like that. The guy in front of me was an executive at a studio. We started talking. He asked, what are you working on? I just mentioned it, and he gave me his card, said, call me tomorrow morning. We'll make the deal, and we did. I think I wrote probably the pilot episode on that, and that was it. And I think that company actually went out of business at that time, but it was very popular at the moment. So there's so many different ways to approach this. I think what's really interesting about this panel is that everybody here, I can tell, has done it a different way, and yet it still gets done. It's the weirdest thing. The one thing I want to say, and I think it was already said, Julia said that one, Julie kind of alluded to it, you got to keep at it. It is a numbers game. The number one word you're going to hear is perseverance. You just have to keep doing, and don't get disappointed. Be proud of everything that you have sold and everything you have not sold. It's all going to come in handy eventually.
In this business, every little step matters, and people don't necessarily realize it. But touching on that, Stephen, is for each of you, it is about perseverance. And obviously, some of us have been in it for a long time, some a little bit less. What is it that keeps you going throughout this time when this business is about rejection, is about no's, is about how difficult it is to whether it be an acting job, a writing job, a producing job, selling a show, developing a virtual reality game? What is it that keeps you driven each week, each day, each year to continue in this business? Deb, I'll go with you first. Oh, Deb's on mute too.
Thank you. Sorry, it's amazing. I still do that. After all these
Well,
years.
see, the thing is, for our fans that are watching, they're all on mute. So I just have to be a bit quicker on the clicker.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
So I've been in the business since I was 12. Literally I was 5 years old. I told my mother to get me an agent. She didn't, thank God. So this is something I've just always wanted to do. So that's kind of what keeps me driven every single day of my life, as well as honestly a paycheck. My mortgage is not cheap, and I like where I live. So I have 1,000 things going at once, and always determined to make it. So that's kind of what keeps me going. And I love being creative, to be honest. Like if I'm not doing 18 million things, something is absolutely wrong. So if I'm not working my butt off, something's not right. So yeah, I love this business, and that's what keeps me going.
And Laura, you just moved down here 5 years ago from Oregon. So tell me, what keeps you driven in this last 5 years obviously you have Mario Brothers, but what else is it that keeps you driven in this business?
Well, when I think about why I keep doing it and wanting to do it is, I think I always wonder, because my perspective was I was living somewhere where you could not make a living as a full-time actor. It was not a possibility. Maybe if you were like married and there was like a strong income coming in, but it wasn't an option, like everybody there had a day job, and then you kind of did theater and then projects, commercials. It was a lot of like non-union commercial work and industrials. You'd use your vacation and your time off and your lunch hour and whatever to like try and cram that creative life in. And that was just kind of the way it was there. So I worked in the corporate world for a while. I worked in the nonprofit world. And then I became a full-time actor, I don't know, maybe around like 2008, because I was married at that point in my life. So my husband's income was coming in. He really encouraged me to do that. And then I was able to do it. And I remember what it was like to sit at those desk jobs and just be super unhappy. It was just something that for me, even though my family loved it when I was like in the corporate world, because they were like, oh, you've got a 401k and it's so secure and it's so great. And you're 29 and you bought your own house. And I'm like, and I'm a crazy shopaholic because I'm so miserable because I'm not doing what I want to do with my life. So I think when you have that experience of really tried to make yourself that square peg in the round hole or whatever, and try to live that life, to come down here, even when it's like unglamorous work. I'm a working actor. I'm not a famous actor by a long shot. My worst day as a working actor is better than my best day in the corporate world. So that's a lot of what keeps me going just personally, was like, I don't want to go buy stuff all the time because I don't want to go get that job that allowed me to go to Nordstrom and buy purses on my lunch hour, which is what I was doing in the corporate world. Like I just had tons of stuff, was super unhappy. Was just, and every time I was casting something, it was like as a mega bitch, because I had such an edge to my personality. I know I'd go into these auditions and I'd be like, but it was because I was coming in, through traffic on my lunch hour, coming in from the suburbs to downtown to like park and try to do that, and then eat in the car on the way back, to the office, and feeling such envy for my friends who I'd, gone to college with, who were pursuing careers in theater and stuff, and just being like, why can't I do that? And a lot of it was where I lived made that hard. So I came here and I was like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, what? Like, I'll do background work. I don't care. Like, I'll do these non-glamorous things. That's a happy life to me. So for me, cobbling that together, as hard as it can be, and certainly coming out of the strike, COVID, all those things have made it really hard. I'm still more inspired to try to figure out a way to hustle and put something together, and build that life. That's what keeps me going. Because I guess because I know the alternative, and I know for me, there was no relief in that. Like right before I left Portland, I went and I started working. I got a reception job. I was getting divorced, We were in a waiting period to sell the house. And I was like, I can stay home and wring my hands about the future. I could just go somewhere and make some money. So I started doing receptionist work at this dance company, which really, I mean, kind of cool. Like I got to watch people dance all day while I sat at a desk, but I was only there for like 2 weeks when that security wore off. And I was like, oh, this is why I don't like doing this. Like, this is why when this is all I've got in front of me, I'm super unhappy. So that was a long-winded answer to say.
No, it's good. No, it's listen, if you can love what you do, which I think we all do, that's why we're in this business, it really amplifies everything and why we work so hard. Austin, what is it? You came from modeling, you came from sports broadcasting, and now you're doing acting and you've got some big movies out. What is it that drives you each day to continue in this business?
Absolutely. And to echo Laura a little bit as well, right out of school when I was looking for opportunities, I did a corporate job as well. I was working in boat insurance. So I completely understand and sympathize with that, sitting at a desk and being able to get on set, and that dichotomy of how much happier and that just true sense of feeling like you're doing something of purpose is a huge driving factor. But I did come from sports. I'm a huge competitor, and I look at each audition, each conversation, opportunity as a mini game. And just, it's something that drives you to continue to have that purpose and gives my life a meaning a little bit, to be like, hey, I'm working towards something every single day, and each step is another opportunity to prove myself or play the game. And it's just a driving thing that makes me happy. And honestly, the most fun thing is when I'm on set acting, but I think kind of what you said as well, you have to be in love with it, and you have to be in love with the process, because if you're not in love with the process, it's so draining, it's so much rejection, and it can really break you down. But if you really look at each thing, each step, as you said, as an opportunity and as a way to grow and improve, it becomes a little bit more fun of a process for sure. And it's just, there's no better feeling than working on something that you truly love and you feel like you are supposed to be doing. And so when you really get to sit down with yourself and figure out what that is, whatever it is, you just have that drive and you have that build, and each day is looked at in a different light than when you're doing something that doesn't really have meaning in your life, I think.
Excellent. Richard Leacock.
Yeah, just to touch on everything everybody's been saying, really, it's that creativity, having that be what leads you. Sometimes, as an actor, I've always felt like I shouldn't sit and wait by the phone. I should be doing something to keep those juices flowing. So it could be as much as coming up with the idea for a TV show, for a movie or something. My brother's an actor as well, so we like to bounce ideas off each other all the time. He's like, "Hey, what about this? Yeah, okay, let's see if we can do that next week." I mean, that's how we think, and that's how we always putting things together. We have a slate of different things that we would just love to do and try to develop. And also, we know that there's absolutely a lot of rejection in this business. I actually, as a very young actor, worked with a gentleman who's passed away now, a gentleman named Barney Martin, who played Seinfeld's dad on Seinfeld. I worked with him when I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And he took me aside, and actually just decided to have this great conversation with this kid that he, it's just getting to know. And he just always said, you have to stay in the game. You have to stay and do whatever you can. Live your life. Try to keep learning, because that all infuses what we do and in the creativity that we bring to it. But you have to stay in the game. And you always get that turn. It always comes around. And even when that turn comes by, you still have to stay in the game for that turn to come back again, for you to get out there and do it again. So it's just always about trying to move forward with the creativity. It's why I'm doing this short right now. My brother and I, we're pushing forward with that, and it's just to keep it going.
Julie, you've had quite a variety of different careers already in this business.
Yeah.
Tell me not only what keeps you going, but what made you transition from one to the next?
Yeah, I kind of live for the click, when that creativity does click and you're in that flow state. And I do feel like maybe I need to kind of have variety in order to keep finding that click. Because I mean, I personally burned out on reality TV and I was like, I'm done with this. This doesn't bring me joy anymore. And so I made a very conscious decision to say, I'm not doing that anymore. And that was hard at first, but I take like leaps of faith in that my skills will translate. And I had already done the books and then moved into comics. And then now I haven't done reality TV for several years. And because that no longer brought me joy. And so I look for the click where it's like, I feel like I'm in flow state and that creativity really does feel joyful. But it's still very bumpy along the way. I'm not going to sell a dream. Like even if you're loving what you're doing, it can be very difficult. So for me personally, meditation really keeps me grounded and centered. And I know Richard and I have talked about it. I'm a certified meditation teacher just for selfless service, to try to teach other people, because it has had such a profound like impact on my life and keeping kind of the crazy at bay.
Sure. No, we have had very long conversations, and I do find it extremely helpful to meditate and sort of de-stress from this business. But before we get into that, which was a subject I was going to bring up, Stephen, what keeps you going after? I mean, you've been this for a very long time. You've done a lot of work, a lot of shows. You said you sold a lot of shows, didn't necessarily get on the air, which is part of this process. Even as an actor writer, you might act in a movie and it gets cut out, might never show the light of day. What keeps you going after all these years?
Well, aside from the fact that I have no marketable skills in either field, it is, everybody's touched on this already. And Richard had said that, when he was introducing himself, that he mentioned the word blessed. And this is not even a religious or spiritual thing, but there is a feeling of that. There is something that has infused into our spirits and my spirit, this creativity, but mostly it's this joy that we have in expressing it. It's a very, very childlike thing. We never lost track of that. The kid still, lives inside of us. And I have been somebody who plays with a lot of flashy objects. I play with something for a while, and then I see another flashy object. Hold on, I'll be back. I'm going to go and play with that one for a while. And I've been fortunate that I've been able to do that. I started out as an actor. I was, my first paid gig was theater acting when I was 12 years old, regional theater in the Southeast. And that's what I came out here to pursue. I never intended to be a writer or a producer. That happened. And the reason it happened is because I became fascinated with the process, the actual, from the day one, how is something created? Start with the writing, work on that. And I just loved the idea of analyzing scripts, taking them apart, putting them back together again. First of all, it made me a much better actor. I was much more prepared when I'd go in for a reading because I understood how levels worked. And then I just started writing for the fun of it. And I literally was writing for the fun of it when suddenly myself and my best friend at the time, we were on staff on a show. And I've looked back on this often because, as everybody knows, it's an extremely difficult industry. It is one of the most debilitating, wearying, angry, frustrating things that you could possibly consider doing, and by far the most rewarding thing you ever could have considered. So when people ask me about what keeps me going, and I've been asked that before, I just say, look, there's a forward momentum inside of me that I can't stop. And if I did, I'd be miserable. And it is very, very easy to be miserable in the world. I choose not to do that. My business card here, if you can see this, you'll see that I have a beard in this business card. It's got my picture because I just actually shaved it off because I'm still doing acting. I was just doing a stage production of Matilda where I was Trunchbull. So I had to shave this off. That's why it's scraggly. It's coming back. But if you take a look at what I wrote on there.
Angel, I can't see.
Alleged writer?
It says, alleged writer. And the reason I put that on there, people think that's a joke, and it is kind of funny. But the reason I put it on there is I said, I have no idea. They pay me for it. But more importantly, I just love doing it. So if you want to call me a writer, cool. That's awesome. All I know is I have this little child inside of me, and he refuses to go home. He's just going to keep playing because he knows nothing else to do. And I've been very, very fortunate and blessed that people have been interested in seeing that little child.
It's awesome. For me personally, a lot of what keeps me going is if I didn't have an outlet for all the creativity in my brain, I'd probably go crazy.
Mhm.
So to be able to develop shows, write, pitch, even if you don't sell a show, it's still that process that you're creating something, you're developing something, you're using your brain to do something fun. But a lot of it is also the journey and the people we get to work with, right? So oftentimes we get to pick who we work with in this business. We get, Richard I've worked with, Julie I know, Laura I know, Deb I've worked with, Austin I met recently. But it allows us this journey and this time to work through a process with people we know, we become friends, we become family with. And it doesn't happen too often in this world, where we get to really enjoy every aspect of a career that we're in. And so for me, it is the entire process in that journey. And yes, it's great when you can sell a show. It's great when you can get a show on TV. But I've been working with some of my best friends for years, and there's nothing better. I mean, we are blessed, as Richard said, and we are lucky.
Richard, with that in mind, there is a question. We ask you this every year because the fans really want to know. Do you have any updates on us as far as the Atlantis Grill film project or anything you could share?
What I can share is that I'm actively pitching it right now as a series. Yes, being actively pitched. What your fans should know, and what, as Stephen and Julie sort of alluded to, but didn't really go into great depth on, the process is to sell a show, to develop a series, takes several years to develop it, to make sure it's right, to get everything in tune, to write the pilot. And as Stephen or anybody else who writes knows, that writing is rewriting until you get it right. And then it's about taking it out. And that process is another 6 to 9 months of pitching. And then you get in development. I have a show at a major network right now that is 4 years in the making, and we're waiting on the green light right now. And so it's not something that happens overnight, but it is actively being pitched as we speak. How about that?
Well, we have hit a whole bumps in the way. We had a global pandemic, which pretty much shut down the world for a while.
And the strikes and all the strikes.
And the strikes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we know it takes time. However, our little impatient, little child selves go, but I want it now. I want to see what they look like. And speaking
I'm sure
of
everybody
which,
does, as do I. But let's just say it is. I spoke with her yesterday. It's in very good hands. Things are being read.
Sounds very exciting.
I can't say much more than that, but it is an active process. Everything, all the materials, as far as Stephen was talking about, the Bible, the pilot, the presentation, the images, the character breakdowns, it's all done. It's out there. It's being shopped. And hopefully we will have some very, very good news in 2024. That's what I would say. Yes, it has been. We did have a pandemic. We did have a writer's strike. I had some personal stuff last year that sidetracked me for about 6 or 9 months. And so the Atlantis Grill fan base is going to just have to be patient a little while longer. And hopefully we will have good news by the next time the next TagCon comes around next year. That's our goal, for sure.
And one thing I want to mention is that having Richard Leacock, yes, but Richard Joel as the person who is handling this is so opportune, because my series has Richard is a sports fan, okay? And there's a lot of people here who are like, they cover sports, Well, my book has games. So it's like a very relevant thing. They're huge. They're like a Hunger Games, but even bigger. So they're games, and this is like really, really a good kind of co-influence, or whatever the word is. And I'm a writer, I can't think of a word, like this putting together of the producer and the writer, and it's just like, this is gonna work. So I have like my hands crossed, because
and I think what Vera was leaning into is actually games. I create, those who don't know, I create game shows and competition shows, and I have a very big one out right now that
there's Sid behind you. I see that Sid, like a little thingy on your shelf. What is that?
That was an Extreme Musical Chairs game show.
Yeah, there we go.
So, and since Squid Games got turned into a reality game competition, I do believe that the Atlantis Grill at some point will be
there's the games of the Atlantis Grill, like huge.
No,
so, yes.
And we will play to the death in that, Vera. We will not let people give up. Let's take game shows to the next level, okay?
Yeah.
Well, and
let's put money on the line. Let's start putting some lives on the line. So I do want to ask some specific questions now. Also, Laura, you do a lot of voiceover. You're obviously Rosalina in Super Mario Brothers, which is amazing. What is the difference for you between an audition for voiceover versus an audition for a film or TV show where you're on camera?
Honestly, like I don't have to memorize it. It's interesting because you get on a lot of panels at like Comic-Con and people will say, well, I want to get into voiceover and what should I do? And then I'm like, well, do you have an acting background? And a lot of times they'll say no. And I'm like, well, that's the first thing because it's voice acting. That's what it is. You are acting. You just happen to be doing it on a mic. But like if you saw me auditioning for stuff or recording for stuff, I'm using just as much of my body and creating just as much of a character, so many games too now, like when you're working in video games, especially, they want you to sound like yourself. You're not doing necessarily a funny voice. Yes, sometimes, but a lot of games, like if you think of like a Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, all those types of games where people just kind of sound like real people, but they're in specific situations. So the directors for those games want to work with actual actors. And then the thing for me that was exciting when I started doing voiceover was like, oh, I don't have to put on makeup. I don't have to memorize it. If I screw it up, I can do it over and over again. It's not like, oh, I just ruined someone's take and we're losing light and it's a thing. Like there's something, the pressure's off, I guess, in that way. But in terms of the way I would do it, I mean, you very much are getting like, a lot of times what I love is when I get drawings, like here's what the character looks like. Here's the age range of the character. And this is what's important to them, the type. And then you kind of create what you think they would sound like and what they would be like. And I, a lot of times will do 2 takes on a character where I'll do one to spec, and then I'll do one that's just like interesting to me. And a lot of times they tend to go with the one that you did that was like not exactly on their specs. Because I think if you think about the person receiving all those auditions, and Julia's someone, and I think you said you're in casting, or Deb, you guys both have done casting, correct? You're getting like people doing it to spec. You're seeing the same thing kind of over and over again. I'm sure it all just starts to cancel each other out. I'd love to hear you guys talk more about that actually, because I've got my perspective, but I sometimes try to do something a little different because sometimes people I think don't know what they want. It's like, here's the idea of what they want, but you kind of know it when you see it, right?
Yeah.
Totally. Yes. Sometimes it pops and sometimes it doesn't. And it's kind of that je ne sais quoi, right? Sometimes, especially in reality TV casting, I would do a lot of like Skype reels at the time. Oh my God, Skype, or Zoom. And you like record the conversations and you really try to like get them there, but it can be hard because they're just, having a conversation with you. And then some people come out of the gate and they're just like, it just is perfect, So it's kind of that little lightning in a bottle. And it's nice to see what people bring to the table because that's what makes it fun and collaborative and like takes it to the next level.
That's actually been one of my biggest challenges as an actor there's such a good little girl part of me that was such a rule follower and a pleaser and a straight A student growing up. And, I mean, Austin and Richard, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Like that, we come to it, we want to do it right. But sometimes what's most interesting, I'm sure from casting, and then, I mean, Deb and Julie, if you can weigh in on that, is when you just show up and you've done something that they didn't expect, or even, I mean, Stephen, I wonder if you've ever written something, had something in mind, and then saw like an audition tape and it was like, whoa, that's not what I thought. But trying to remember to bring what I bring as an actor, like what's interesting and unique about me, that's sometimes really hard to do because you're like, I don't want to get kicked out because it looked like I didn't understand how to read specs. But at the same time, they're probably seeing a lot of people doing the same thing over and over. And then that's when they say, when you see specs on something you auditioned for, and then you see it and you're like, that's not even close to what they asked for. And it's like, right, because they probably, everything else canceled each other out. And then that showed up. But I'd love to hear what other people from all your different perspectives think on that.
If I can throw something into that, because you're spot on about that. I've cast a lot of shows, certainly the shows that I produce, I've cast them and seen so many people come through the doors. As an actor, when you come in and even when we're casting voice talent as well, number one thing you're looking for is commitment. The person has to be confident. And you want them to find the levels that you wrote in the script. But here's the other thing. Somebody can come in and be perfect at that. They can find all the levels. And it will be very good. And they have a really good chance of getting the role. But then a person comes in and they give what writers call a little treasure. They take it to another level. And we sit there, and it doesn't mean changing the words or redoing the dialogue. It means that they have emotionally captured part of that now resonates even bigger. And when that person comes in, even if they're not right for that role, we're sitting there trying to figure out where to place this person. We want to work with this person. There have been other times that I've had actors come in and they've been completely off base, completely 100% off base. But because of the confidence and the commitment, and they made choices, again, that same thing. They walk out of the door and we look at each other and we say, that person has got to come onto the show. And I've written characters based on a casting session that did not exist in the script at that time. So it all comes down to that. And in the vocal area, I think it's very interesting you brought that up. I've done a few animated things. And what I was, and I did some vocal work when I was younger, but not doing voiceover for, not putting voices on animated characters or anything as good as that. It was mostly just like radio work. But what I was really interested in watching was exactly what Laura was talking about. When actors do voice work, they put so much into the part that you will never see, which is their body. And I had a producer one time explain to me about this whole thing, and he used a word for it. I don't even know if it's common. And I can't remember what it was, but there's this whole area around the microphone that you will see them and they're getting into it. You see the intensity. And there was one session where Mark Hamill was actually the character, and I had written the character. And even watching him, you figure Mark Hamill, he's so famous, you just step up there and just bum, bum, bum. You could just say the words. No, he was in it. He was doing it. And in another case, the actor, when he was done, and it was a very simple thing, he was exhausted, totally exhausted, because he had put everything into that. So, my only claim to fame for that is I did a couple of voiceovers in the A-Team where I voiced a parrot. That was it. But, and I did not have to get us through the gesticulations. But yeah, confidence is the number one thing. Any type of casting session and anything you do in this particular business, you've got to walk in and walk out as if you own it.
Richard, Austin, you guys had some comments there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I totally understand what Laura's coming from. Like, you want to do everything right, you want to make sure you check all the boxes, and you're like, I just want to make sure that I'm doing all the right stuff. But all of my best roles and all of the tapes that have gone on to be successful for me have been the ones where my essence has shown through, or I've made a choice or a decision that has just been unique and a little bit outside of the box. And it's really finding those idiosyncrasies and the little elements that make the character tick, and how to bring your personal self into the role so that it does stand out. And it's a tricky line to balance, because you do want to give them what they're looking for, but you also want to give them something that is going to catch their eye and maybe weren't initially exactly looking for. So I completely know what you mean by that. And I've definitely had my share of those moments of, I just want to make sure that this is what they want, and that's not what they want.
I think, part of it, before Richard answers, I think it's because I've cast a lot of things as well. You'll see people come in not only confident, but kind of take control of their audition. It's the people that actually take control of their audition and know that they're in the power and not the casting director. There's a lot of people come in almost, even though they're confident, they're waiting for commands. They're waiting for everything. It's like, come in, be there, be ready to go, know what you want to deliver, and be like, hey, you know what? I own this room, I own this audition. You want me in, on your film. And I think it shows so easily when people I didn't know that as an actor. When I was an actor, I had no clue about it. But as a producer and casting things, it's so clear to see when somebody walks in with the confidence and the power to own it, and those that don't.
Which is different
Richard.
from being cocky. Be confident.
Yes. No, it is. There is. I go back to the musical chairs game show. We were auditioning real singers for the band, and people would come in and they weren't ready with their music, and they stood in front of the microphone. And this one woman came in, maybe like the 9th or 10th person, put out her music stand, laid out the songs. She told the musical director what song she wanted to start with. She took the microphone off the stand, moved the stand. She was singing and dancing and moving. I was like, wow, that woman just came in here and totally wiped everybody off the table. It was just amazing, the difference in somebody going, I'm going to own this. It's going to be mine.
I think when we get Richard,
yeah, I was gonna say,
it's gonna be about my last person, because We've only got about 7 minutes left.
All right, we got plenty of time here, Nancy. We got plenty of time.
I know.
I'll be quick.
Got more questions.
All right.
Let Richard Leacock speak. Let Richard.
I'll be quick. I just want to say, just take control of the room when you walk into that audition room, of course. And, I always look to do something different than what's in, the guidelines on the character. I'm always looking to say, okay, well, everybody else is going to do that. How about I just do something way different? One of the series I got, it was a very straight ahead character, very serious character. I took a risk and I infused some comedy into what was going on. I maybe ad-libbed a little bit here and there. And when I walked out of the audition room, the producers were like, you did something we hadn't thought of and we like it way better. I ended up on a series for 5 years just for doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So
I think that all of that advice is the same when pitching.
Yes.
It's like the same, like you have to be confident, but you have to be yourself. And, just all of those things are the same when you're going into a room to pitch.
Yeah.
take an
personally-
improv class if you haven't. Anybody with your pitching shows, if you're a writer, actor, director, take an improv class. That will give you that.
I did improv for
Or
years.
just go on TikTok and start making those little.
I did improv for
Vera
years.
knows all
and
about
then-
5 minutes left.
Just do everything.
I think
Yeah,
as an
what
actor,
was-
especially when you're talking about like voiceover, like the ability to like improv stuff, like that's become actually a pretty big thing. Like they want to hear you add stuff into it. So that part of my training, more than I ever could have dreamed, has come in handy. And I didn't think it would be for voiceover. I thought that would have just been for live stuff. But
There's 2 more questions I want to squeeze in, Nancy. One, Deb, how did you transition into coaching people, and what exactly does that look like?
You know what? I just, obviously I have the Emmys behind me. I just have the knowledge, and people started reaching out to me, to be honest. And I guess sometimes you just don't realize what you know and what you have. And so, yeah, I just decided to, start media coaching. It's my name, then it's Book It, Tricks of the Trade to Get on TV. So I teach just a bunch of different things, how to write a script, how to be on camera, do bullet points instead of, writing word for word what you want to say because it sounds fake. Lighting tricks, makeup tricks, just, a bunch of different stuff, to get you to book that on, to book a show basically. And also I've been working, like I said, I've been working in this business since I was 12, started on camera in Philadelphia. So I have a plethora of contacts in this business.
Those are beautiful Emmys. They are beautiful Emmys.
Just
Okay.
kind of nonchalantly behind me.
They're
So yeah, no,
gorgeous.
that's why I just felt like, and I love to teach, and I love to see people succeed, and I try my best to help everybody. So.
Richard Leacock, you did Picard, Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
That's
Awesome,
listen,
man.
Star Trek Legacy, it's a big weight on your shoulders to book, working with Patrick Stewart and Jerry Ryan.
I know
What
you're
was
thrilled.
that like to audition, but also to be on set with them?
Well, actually, if I can be honest, I didn't actually audition for that. I was given that role.
Uh-huh.
Oh, too bad.
The director, Jonathan Frakes, it's a very good friend of mine. And one day we were talking, he said, we haven't worked together. I'm like, well, bro, you can make that happen. I can't. So I got a call not too long after that. And, but I got to work with Jerry Ryan, Michelle Hurd, Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner. It was amazing. Patrick Stewart and I got to sit next to him and kind of pick his brain a little bit and speak with him. We got him in early and we got him out early, but so I spent more time with everybody else, but it was an amazing experience. I mean, I'm part of the Star Trek world. I mean, that's crazy to think. I grew up watching that, from the inception of the first one, in reruns later after. I wasn't quite around when it first came out, but you understand.
Sure. You and William Shatner go way back there, Richard. Julie,
Exactly, we do.
Julie, doing a virtual reality game, can you touch on that a little bit? Because I know you've been working on it for a couple of years now. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? Because that's something very new.
It's hard. It's so hard because the tech is like insane. We had the idea for the project, my husband and I, we work together. He's an animated filmmaker, got me into animation. And so he's directing it. I wrote it and I'm producing it. We had the idea 10 years ago, and it just kind of, I wrote it as a feature film. I hated the ending, never really pitched it, but we had beautiful artwork and it just kept coming around. So I've written the first book, and I'm starting the second and third book in series, and we're in full production. We have a team of 10 artists working on it right now. We're going to have more onboarded soon. But what's really hard about it is the tech, because it's very code heavy. We've got 4 programmers on our team, and when I'm learning how long it takes, and I'm like, why is this taking so long? And they're like, because the code broke. And I'm like, cool. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, at least I know like how to edit, like not that well, but I know the tools. I don't work in Unreal. So I have to trust my team, but it's often 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because we'll have done something and then the code breaks when we do something else. And so the tech part of it is the hardest part. But then when you put on the headset and you play test, you're like, holy shit, like this is so cool. And so the tech is also the coolest part about it, because it's like, wow, this is the future, and it's here and it's now and it's fucking awesome. So it's like the hardest thing I've ever done, but also probably the coolest.
And Laura, you're doing Steve the Brain. Is that right?
Steve the Alien.
Steve the Alien. I'm sorry, Steve the Alien.
Steve the Brain.
And that is a short form animated series. But Artie, how long is that taking you guys to work on that to even just get your first pilot episode out?
I mean, I don't know very much about the process at all. Like, I was an English major with a theater, like double English and theater major in college. So I can write, but like this process of like writing stuff, finding an animator, voicing it, getting music involved, like it's still really early on in it. And it's a huge learning experience for me, because these are all areas I've never touched on. But again, another thing I love about LA, it's so possible here because there's so many people who, when you bring up a project, are kind of excited to be involved with it. Like, even if you're like, we don't know where this is going, we don't know if anyone's getting paid right now, like we're just putting this together and creating it and putting it out there. There's something really exciting about being in that and just being like, well, we'll see what happens.
Austin, anything new happening for you right now?
No, I have a Lifetime film coming out next month. The title still to be named, so excited for that. And then seeing what 2024 has to offer.
Awesome. Anybody else? I know we're out of time here. Is that right? Have we run out of time?
Yes, unfortunately.
Our panel always goes
We
by.
never,
so
I mean,
fast.
we either underestimate or overestimate. We could just never, we're just never in the Goldilocks zone. We just can never get it quite right.
Everybody on this panel could do 2 hours. So
Yeah.
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yeah, we need more.
Richard Leacock,
Because you are amazing. You're all, I'm like sitting here going, wow. All of you.
I have to say, when I saw you on that episode of Picard, the first, I went, wait a minute. Yeah, that guy looks, then I had to rewind it. I know that guy. And I'm watching it with one of, and he's going, oh, was it at a convention? I said, yeah. I said it was one of our tag cons. And he said, oh, is he a nice guy? I said, yeah, he really is. He went, oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to finish with something
It's
since it
kinda
is.
cool when you know somebody. Go, I know that person.
All right, I'm going to finish with something really fast because it is Super Bowl week, whether you're a sports fan or not. Everybody give me, is it the 49ers or Chiefs that are going to win? Julie?
Go sports.
Go ball.
Richard Leacock.
I mean, I'd like to see the 49ers do it, but I think it's going to be the Chiefs.
Steve?
Florida State Seminoles. I'm sticking with it.
Perfect. Laura? Laura doesn't care about football.
Nope. Chiefs. I don't know. Taylor Swift. What? I don't know.
Austin?
Good
I'm a
answer.
Steelers fan, so I don't want the 49ers to catch us Super Bowl wins. I think Mahomes and Kelsey are coming home with another one.
And Deb?
I want San Francisco to win, and they're the more balanced team, but I'm going to go Kansas City.
All right. Well, there we
Did
go.
I sound like a sports reporter? No.
Everybody, thank you so much for participating with our TagCon entertainment panel this year. We really do appreciate it. Nancy, Vera, for putting this on. Greatly. Thank you guys all so much. Really, really do appreciate you. And please continue the positive journey and success in 2024 for each one of you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice
Thanks,
to meet you,
guys.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.